Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this The Cloud Decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. And for once I say for once, this is what I've been doing for months, but over the past week, I can finally get back to actually talking about Labour and how it's just a complete nightmare for them. So first things first, there's no moral case. Labour divided over prospects of benefit cuts. Some feel the party is moving away from the working class, but others argue ministers must show new Labour voters the system can work. So this is all about cuts made to universal credit and PIP. They're going to make PIP harder to get, which absolutely should happen, by the way. That 60% of people with autism end up on PIP. It's nuts. There's too many people on it. They're also going to freeze PIP, so it's not going to go up with inflation, at least next year, and universal credit is, I believe, getting a bit of a cut, which is actually the part I'm against. The universal credit is there for people who effectively have no job, and it is supposed to be a very short-term benefit, effectively to, keep people from falling through the cracks. So that one is odd to me. However, so obviously this was announced by Starmer, and some within Labour fold feel as though the direction of the party has changed and is now veering from rallying behind workers and the working class. Of course, it's been pointed out by a lot of people that if you are for the workers, the people you're representing should probably be working. Others believe it's the right time to make these cuts so the government can prove to voters, particularly those who do not previously back Labour, that the welfare system is fit for purpose. What unifies them, though, is their anxiety over public reactions to cuts to the welfare budget of up to £6 billion and how they will be required to ease constituents' frustrations. I would like to remind you that they managed to find £18 billion to send to Mauritius to give away our islands, so that's another thing. This week, Starmer described the benefit system as the worst of all worlds, and he said the number of people out of work or training with indefensible and unfair. The UK bill for health and disability benefits is forecast to hit £70 billion by 2030. That's PIP, by the way. It's just an ever-expanding piece of benefit, and it's not even necessarily that I want to get rid of it altogether. Some people absolutely need it. It's mainly for people who have long-term chronic illnesses who basically need a bit of help just so that they can work part-time. It doesn't get you all that much. You can't live off just PIP alone is what I mean, but way too many people have it. So the cuts announcement would be like having a bomb dropped in my inbox if it's as negative as the pitch seems to be getting rolled for, one Labour MP said. I'm not feeling good about this at all. They added, there will obviously be people who can be supported into work on benefits, but I don't see how going after people who rely on PIP and people who should not be compelled to look for work for very obvious reasons is where the book should be getting balanced. Again, as I said before, they're supposed to be the party of workers, and here they are making excuse for people to not work. Again, people can have long-term chronic illnesses that require like an iron lung or something. People like that obviously do not need to work. That makes complete sense. Another MP said it's a complete S show and isn't something a Labour government should be doing. People are incredibly scared and nervous, and that's rightly pouring onto us. Emails from worried constituents have begun to trickle in. Oh, I should do that. Particularly expressing concerns about loved ones who could lose out. One minister stressed the need to reduce the benefit bill, which I do agree with, but voiced grave concern over the number of people whose safety net will be severely damaged. Another minister adding doom scrolling on social media to get a sense of the level of anger over planned cuts. Definitely don't do that. People on social media will lie about how bad it is. Just they'll deal with it. Don't worry. But you get the idea. Once again, this was basically a reform pledge to cut the benefits bill effectively. Labour copied that homework. Labour MPs, do not like it. Not sure about ministers. I would imagine they have to toe the party line. Anyway, another, I guess this isn't quite nightmare, but still rather large bit of news for Labour is that Mike Amesbury, the Labour MP who punched a constituent, ended up with 10 weeks in jail and then managed to get it suspended after 3 days in prison, and has decided it's probably best to resign. This is probably due to not just reform, to be fair, but a few canvassers going out there to try and get the recall petition signed. I know Reform were doing that. I was involved. And so obviously he's just jumped the gun and said, yeah, I'm resigning. Probably doesn't particularly want to be in Parliament while while he's known as the man who punched his own constituent. Long story short, on the numbers on this one, Labour won really comfortably. It's not even really worth going into the statistics. But it was a place Reform came second, and the gap has narrowed quite significantly. Reform in the latest polling were just 3 percentage points behind Labour, so again there's probably going to be quite a lot of canvassing going on from both parties there. It's going to be quite the battleground, and it really is the first test for Reform, so fingers crossed on that front. As I say, nightmare for Labour, because if they don't win that seat, that is Well, I mean, Reform will be back to 5 MPs, and the momentum clearly won't be as hit as we once thought. So let's see how it goes, eh? There's also more talk of copying Reform's homework. It's hilarious how desperate they are to come across as based, but unfortunately I think it's too late. I think the damage has already been done, and this overcompensating, while it's a good start for Reform, it's, going to lead to some good outcomes, but probably nowhere near the level that Reform voters would expect. Government job loss is almost certain, Minister admits, as PM vows to reshape the state. And this also, as has been announced this morning, is going to include the cut to NHS England, which is currently a quango and not overseen by the government, but clearly they are putting the NHS back in the hands of the actual Department for Health, which is overseen by the Health Minister. So I see that as nothing but a good move, but once again, basically, that was a Reform pledge. So thank you for copying their homework. Anyway, as part of the announcements, the classic media attack was put on. No return to austerity, PM tells Sky News. Beth Rigby started by asking about both his plans to cut NHS England and 1,000 of the accompanying jobs. He comments about the expanding size of the state that seems to signal further job cuts to come, and his plans to make billions of pounds of savings by cutting welfare. I mean, again, the nightmare here isn't the actual policy. It's actually good policy. The problem is that this is going to be what's questioned to him all the time now. What about people's jobs? What about the NHS? Are you selling it off? What's going on? And it's just going to be a bit of a nightmare because our media class just sucks. Again, here, she asks if he stands by his pledge to not return to austerity, and Starmer replies, there is no return to austerity. It's just all he's doing is raising taxes and cutting spending to try and fix the deficit, which is exactly what austerity is, by the way. I said that to you before the election, we're not going to austerity. And it's just nonsense. This is actually an example of austerity. Labour are doing austerity, and it is good. Credit where it's due. This is quite a large policy. I mean, personally, I don't think it's going to make the NHS particularly run any better, because I don't trust Labour to run a bath, let alone the NHS. But on the bright side of all this, take them out from being a quango and having them with direct government oversight, you get Reform in. Well, careful what you wish for. On welfare, the PM defends his rumoured plans to cut the bill by billions, saying we must support those that need support, but equally we must help those who want to get back to work into work, and at the moment the system doesn't do that. Guess what? That is a Reform pledge. Anyway, further bad news. Chancellor dealt major blow as business confidence sinks. Bad news for Reeves ahead of spring's statement. And the details of this particular article are just diabolical. The alarming data comes as Britain's budget watchdog says today it delivered its initial verdict on Labour's tax and spending plans ahead of the mini-budget later this month. An index that measures confidence across British manufacturing industries, published by accountancy firm BDO, fell for the 5th consecutive month. It tumbled to 91.4, the lowest since January 2021, from 92.2, still fairly high. Oh, sorry, a reading of 100 is average. Oh, sorry, so it's average. Sorry, I thought that was percentage. Yeah, that's not good. BDO's score of employers' sentiment towards staffing levels fell to levels reminiscent of the global financial crisis in 2008. Fears are mounting over growing unemployment as various sectors brace for a barrage of costs next month. Well, to be honest, our unemployment statistics are already bastardised, to be honest with you. They don't count people on out of work benefits as unemployed, because the assumption is these people can't work, when easily that could just be mass fraud for all we know. But this gets even worse. For the first time since records began in 2012, the number of businesses listed on Companies House has fallen. Total number of UK businesses stood at 5,408,707 at the end of 2024, down 19,879 from the previous quarter. Again, this is the government that was going for growth, and as we can see, the number of businesses is indeed instead falling. And all this stuff about cuts to benefits and doing up NHS England and firing a load of staff from that quango, this is all to save money, because it turns out that they don't have the overhead anymore. Turns out the money they thought they would have doesn't exist. Oh, the non-dom status thing turned out to be a really bad move. They're actually losing money on it, as I've covered in other videos. So yeah, say what you will about Labour, it's clear that they are a disaster. And then it turns out Labour councils and constituencies are just turning into dumps. A Birmingham MP said rubbish piling up on the city streets amid an ongoing bin strike has reached crisis point. The bin strike is because the Birmingham City Council went bankrupt, or effectively declared themselves bankrupt, and so having to find, well, cost cuts where they can. One of them was not paying binmen as much. In turn, they striked. Last time they striked, they got a pay rise, and then an equal pay court case was put forward back in 2012, and that's why they went bankrupt, because they ended up paying bin men more than dinner ladies. They're in the same public sector wages band, and because of that, they claimed it was sexist. They won, and the whole place went bankrupt, and now you're getting the cycle all over again. Our laws are crazy. That's all you need to know. In a letter to Birmingham City Council, again Labour run, Preet Gill said constituents had reported an increase in rats and cockroaches, and that she now feared the public health emergency. An indefinite all-out strike for bin workers in the city began on Tuesday, involving about 350 members of the union Unite, get rid of public sector unions. It follows a row over pay and conditions, particularly the loss of a job role. The union claims some members could lose £8,000 from their salary, but the council said only a small number of workers stand to lose less than £6,000, which is still a fair amount. But there are also stories of rats the size of cats in Birmingham now because of all the rubbish piling up. It's just a dump. And once again, this is another nightmare for Labour. You can't blame this on anyone else. This is just Labour and their Labour-run council. Anyway, now we get into the really bad stuff. Wedge Streeting Aide exposed himself to girl 13, then followed her. Sam Gould has pleaded guilty to 2 offences and is to be sacked as Health Secretary. Well, thank God we won't be having this paedophile, and I don't have to say allegedly because he pled guilty, this paedophile helping run the NHS. I mean, the details of this are just strange. He is said to have been sitting in a car performing a sex act on Saturday when the girl who was walking to meet a friend spotted him and ran away. Gould is said to have got out of the car and followed her into a cul-de-sac where she banged on doors for help before being helped by another motorist. Oh my God. Say what you will about reform, but paedophiles haven't got past so far. I shouldn't speak too soon, I suppose. Because this guy was also a Labour parliamentary candidate and was arrested the same day and has been suspended from Labour. On Monday, he appeared at Barkingside's Magistrates Courts and pleaded guilty to the Indecent, which happened in Romford, East London, and one other account of indecent exposure involving flashing a 25-year-old woman in Hornchurch last month. I mean, I'm not being funny. Perhaps paedophile is a little bit too harsh. Clearly he's flashing women over the age, and the 13-year-old just happened to see him masturbating in a car. But my God, following her, probably the worst thing he could have done. Not being funny, he probably would have got away with it if he didn't chase her, because she didn't know who he was. It's a real Curb Your Enthusiasm moment, that. I don't feel bad for the guy at all, but unfortunately the paedophile label is actually applicable here, simply because he pled to indecent exposure to a 13-year-old. So there we go. So yeah, not great. Bit of a nightmare, as I say. This is definitely going to be picked up by an awful lot of people. Anyway, the recently resigned corruption minister is also constantly being doorstepped by journalists. About things that make her entire story worse. Not only is she involved in allegations of corruption along with her family in Bangladesh, but also there have been more things they want to question.
Are you concerned about torture allegations involving your arse, your incident? Have you been contacted by Bangladesh authorities?
Yep, you may or may not have heard that right. It wasn't exactly obvious, but there have been torture allegations as well over with her family in Bangladesh, and it just makes the whole corruption story even worse. There's people who were tortured as part of the, the corruption allegations, or allegedly tortured, I should say. Not great. Here's another one that happened this week. Carol Henshaw, who was cabinet member for climate change at Preston City Council, made anti-Semitic comments in a WhatsApp group. So apparently they were discussing a 10 August demonstration outside a bank where protesters were demanding the release of Israeli hostages. A transcript later found its way into Preston Labour member Harry Spillman, who submitted a formal question about the matter to the meeting of the council on Thursday, and Henshaw lost the Labour whip. So we don't know exactly what was said, but it was clearly bad enough for Labour members to want to report it, and obviously you don't particularly want anti-Semites in Labour, especially with the reputation that they got under the Corbyn administration. So yeah, she's been kicked out. So paedophilia, anti-Semitism in Labour, corruption and torture being talked about as well, though there are only allegations. Just a bit of a mess in Labour at the moment, it seems. But despite all this, there is one good thing that Starmer is actually managing to do, and that is handle Trump. He's in a race to secure a trade deal to dodge the Trump tariffs because he's putting 25% on all steel all over the world. Prime Minister will not follow the EU in immediately imposing retaliatory tariffs, but talks much succeed by April 1. That was a really bad sentence. But yeah, you get the idea. So Starmer failed in his attempts during a phone call this week to persuade Trump to give Britain a carve-out from the tariffs. However, the PM has decided not to follow the EU with imposing tariffs of his own, amid concerns that doing so would damage hopes of an economic deal with the US. Trump is preparing to impose broader tariffs of 25% on all imports from countries that charge VAT on imports from the US, which would include the UK. He's indicated that the reciprocal tariffs could be imposed on April the 1st. Trump said during a meeting on Wednesday in the Oval Office with Michael Martin, the Irish Taoiseach, apparently that's how you say that, that the US had been abused by the EU. We've been abused for a long time and we will be abused no longer, he said. I am happy with the European Union. We're going to win this. I'm not happy, with the European Union. We're going to win this financial battle. And obviously, Starmer is trying to play more into the charming Trump side of things rather than fighting back. He seems to know what he's doing with Trump. I'm actually quite impressed on that front, which is probably why he's actually the most popular world leader outside of the US with Republicans, because he is the only one not antagonising Trump. Seems to be a good way to go about it. It's just a shame that the Americans are not the one voting him in. So that's pretty much what's going on in Starmerland at the moment. Inside the UK, okay, it's good that NHS England's being reduced. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually... All it really is an administrative quango that effectively allocates the budget. All that's going to happen now is that the Department for Health is going to do the same thing. It's not actually going to fix the NHS as a whole, but hell, it's a good start. I'm not going to take it all away. But it's just been mess after mess after mess after mess. Economy's not growing. It's basically ground to a halt. They're trying to solve that by probably increasing taxes. It was not ruled out that there will not be a spring budget. They're trying to do, finally, some austerity, while not calling it austerity, because they've realised that they've been backed into a corner where they don't have a choice but to do austerity. And then there's obviously the problem with their ministers being part of a massive international corruption scandal. Some of their aides, one of their aides, being found guilty of paedophilia, or at the very least, indecent exposure to an underage person, and then, of course, anti-Semitism still seems to be in the party. Bit of a nightmare week for Labour, and I'm glad that I can finally talk about it again. It's good to see that our government at the moment is, while they are doing, the odd good thing, it is still mostly disaster after disaster. So, with that, vote to get them out. That's what I'd say. Right, I think with that, that's everything I had for you for today. So, shill time. Saturday, it's Laughing at the Guardian with some whamming. My brother's on, by the way, so if you want to hear why Labour are actually good, you might want to come along to that. Next Monday, we should be finishing off the Peloponnesian Wars, at least fingers crossed we are. And then Tuesday, it's Tosh Talks. What is the topic? I don't know yet, but if you want to get involved, please join the Worcester Club, and please do come along to the other streams. Right, if you want to help out this channel, do subscribe, do leave a like, and do leave a comment. That's the easiest way to do it and help out the channel. If you want to give a little bit more, you could always give a super chat or a super thanks in any comment section or any stream that I run, along with becoming a member if you want access to all the previous Laughing at the Guardians. Right, with that, that's everything I had for you for today. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.